like this.
Did he really? I didn't even notice.
Okay. We now acknowledge the media, and I see that you are there in the back, thank you. And from the Globe, and we also have our wonderful TV6 people upstairs that are filming this. So the next matter of the agenda is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
I so move.
All right, it's been moved by Maggie and seconded by Andre. Is there any discussion, any changes? Yes. Cash.
Yes, President. If you look at page 27 of the last meeting, or 27 out of 56, the first item, 16A there, resolution to update the golf course plug-in fee, that I don't see in the agenda. It should have been in the agenda this time.
I'm sorry, would you give us the pages again?
Page 27 of 56 of the minutes, 5A.
Right. 20.
Under 16A, the resolution to update the golf cart plug-in fee. We're supposed to have it on our agenda item for the next 30 days.
I'm not seeing it.
No.
It's on future agenda items,
Right.
Okay.
and I don't think staff was ready.
Oh, okay, all
It
right.
was last month.
Yes.
So
It was
should be-
not, it was not
It
read.
should be
so-
16B on today's agenda.
Right. Well,
Are we ready for it?
no, we are not. That's why we put it still under future agenda items. It was
Okay.
not prepared for this,
We're not prepared.
right.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
I'd ask. Thank you.
And I would like to,
Any other, yeah, you have to get it approved.
yeah, any other comments? All right, in that case, so please use your voting buttons and vote to approve the agenda.
Yes, no. You have a yes, no, or abstain option on your screen. Just go and click on yes. You don't touch it.
Yep.
You abstain. That's it.
Okay. All right, the voting is closed and on the screen.
It doesn't show.
And it is approved.
Right side, got green square.
It works.
Yes, and I was going to save this for my chair's remarks, but I'll say it now because we're doing it. We are using
Wait.
our computer system, Granicus, this morning. And so the board members will be requesting to speak, and I will recognize them as they come up on my screen. I will not be recognize anybody that waves their hand or makes any other way to be recognized. You need to do the request to speak. And then voting will be done electronically so that it can be shown on the screen and on television what the vote was. So we've had a few glitches, but we think I've got them all mixed up, all taken care of, and so we now will be using the Granicus. Maggie, you had a,
Are we on number 5? Did we skip 5?
no, we haven't done it. We're doing
Okay.
5 right now. All right, 5 is the approval of the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Cash, and a second? Manny, okay,
I have a request to speak.
yes. All right, I have Maggie as a request to speak.
Yes, on the report of the chair, under 6, the first 3 dots, Mr. Beaumont and I have conversed about his report. We'd like to say Jeff Beaumont, legislation in progress. Then for SB 722 balcony inspections, will require the mutual, requires, it just requires, cross out the will, requires the mutual to inspect elevated walkways every 6 years. For SB 1265, cross off that sentence, please. Qualifications for the board will eliminate requirements for directors. Will eliminate requirements for directors. SB 1128, election by acclamation, will allow elections by acclamation and changes and so on. That's okay. So just those.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other additions or changes? In which case, would you please vote to accept the, to approve the meeting minutes from our July 12th meeting?
As amended.
How do I get back to my screen?
That little X right there.
Okay, thank you.
I got it.
Okay, looks like 10, yeah, everybody has voted.
I need Reza to vote.
Excuse me?
I need Reza to vote.
Reza, did you vote?
There we go.
Okay, thank you. All right, the minutes of the last meeting are approved. Report of the chair. As I mentioned, we are going to be using the voting screens. We hope that we will get to, it will be second nature, and Chuck won't have to walk around all the time and help us, but he is here to help us, as is Whitney. And so we'll try to get that done today. I wanted to remind everybody that we are embarking on our budgets. We had budget meetings for GRF yesterday, and the budget meeting for version 1 of the budget will be this Thursday at 9:30 a.m. in this room. Anybody who is interested in the details of the budget, not just the outcome, which will all be announced, but any details, et cetera, please feel free to come to that meeting Thursday in this room at 9:30. Now, I'd like to turn it over as part of my chair's remarks to Mr. Beaumont, who is going to give us an update from legislative update.
Thank you, Juanita. Good morning, board. Good morning, everybody. Just real quick, as a update from the last report I gave last month on pending legislation, as I said, each year there are thousands of proposed laws that make it to Sacramento for our legislatures to consider. Some of those make it to the governor's desk. Of those, some are signed and go into law, and some are not signed and fail. Senate Bill 721 is a bill that we've been looking at very closely for quite some time now. I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee in January. This is that bill that, if it would have passed and applied to homeowners associations, would have required communities every 6 years to do actual inspections of all elevated walkways that are exposed to the elements, including balconies, through destructive testing. And based on our preliminary calculations in United alone, that would have cost the community $1.5 million every 6 years. So this was a very, very important issue for us. We oppose this bill, not just we as a board, but the CAI, Community Associations Institute, which has a advocacy group, California Legislative Action Committee, which has a advocate, Louis Brown, that works for the executive committee, which I'm a member of. And we've been opposing this because homeowners associations, including United, your community, already every 3 years does a very diligent visual inspection of all these exposed elevated walkways, including balconies. And we felt that actual destructive testing, tearing apart of these structures and these elements was completely unnecessary and overbroad and burdensome. This bill came out of the tragedy in Berkeley, where that apartment balcony collapsed and that resulted in the fatality of, I believe, college students. That was a very, very unusual case where there was mushrooms growing out of the balcony, and the landlord just had no record of inspections or regular maintenance. So again, we fought hard on this bill. Within the last few weeks, there have been a lot of negotiations and discussions. We did a call to action to people in the state of California that lived in homeowners associations. Anybody that was a part or is a part of CAI responded to that call of action. It resulted in thousands and thousands of letters from people like you sending letters of opposition to local legislatures, and they heard your message. Senator Hill, the sponsor of this bill, heard the message, his staff heard the message, and agreed to an amendment of this bill that took out homeowners associations. So the bill now, as it currently stands, only applies to apartment buildings. So this is a huge victory for us. It's an expense that, if this bill passes in its current form, United and no other homeowners association will need to be concerned about. But what we will do and be vigilant in doing on a continuing basis is to continue to do very diligent visual inspections of the common areas, including balconies and exposed walkways, so there won't be tragedies like there were in Berkeley, which hasn't been reported in any homeowners association to date. So this is a great victory and great news for your community.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is our open forum. I invite any members who wish to address the board regarding items that are not on the agenda. Hopefully you've turned in a card to Cheryl. If not, please do so. And we will call you up by name. And you have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak to the board. So Cheryl, who is our first speaker?
Chris Collins is our first speaker.
Good morning. I'm Chris Collins, 3306Q, and I'm here representing the foundation of Laguna Woods Village. We've all heard the myth that eating carrots will improve eyesight. Unfortunately, that is only a myth, and aging sometimes brings with it failing eyesight, be it from glaucoma, macular degeneration, stroke, or other conditions. One of the village's past residents, Dr. Adeline Bonin, did experience vision problems, and when she passed away, a bequest in her memory was left to the foundation of Laguna Woods Village. And those funds are now helping present residents meet their vision challenges. Some of those funds now help residents using Braille services to buy needed equipment. Some were used to purchase talking books for the village library, and most recently will be used to purchase large print books for the library. Legacy funds do make a difference. They help the foundation of Laguna Woods Village meet both ongoing and unmet village needs. The foundation would like to acknowledge the contribution of past and recent legacy donors, both living and past, who have remembered the foundation in their wills, trust estates, or annuities. The foundation is grateful for their support. The legacy donors include the following: Eloise DeLucia, BJ and Cleo Dennis, Hildegard Tajian, Adeline Bonin, Lawrence Garvin, Marcia Brown, Elaine Lerner, Marion Schlesinger, Bonnie Sullivan, Ralph Reinhardt, Edward and Marcella Levy, Isabel Biggins, Samuel Leibowitz, Leslie McHenry Adamson, Sarah and Jerome Lederer, Annie Peterson, Deanna Hampshire, Gladys Kennedy, Wilma Ledden, Ruth Belson, and Ruth Jane Robichad. If you'd like to become a legacy donor, we suggest you first contact your tax, financial, or other legal advisor about any IRA-related or real estate actions, or the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village at 949-268-2246, or the foundation at comline.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And we certainly are impressed with the generosity of the residents of our village to support the foundation. Our next speaker, Cheryl?
Our next speaker is Maxine McIntosh.
Good morning, Maxine McIntosh, 68C. Two things I want to address. One, I'd like to know about when we can expect a report on the solar heating project that was started last year here in United. And it's supposed to be saving us money. And also, we'd like to hear if Edison refunded any of the shortage that we had in power there to get it started. Remember at one time the board was talking about that could be translated into loss of money. So I just want to know when that report will be coming. The other thing I want to mention is yesterday, Catherine Freshley, during the budget meeting, was talking about the golf course. And you know, I had completely forgotten that the golf course is not in our reserves, our GRF reserves, like most of the amenities are. And you think about how huge the golf course is, all the acres, I don't know how many acres. My guess would be 25 or 30 involved in that size, the size of that golf course. And she especially spoke about the deteriorating sprinkler system covering all of that space and how expensive it will be to have that properly replaced. It's probably overdue for it, 54 years old, it's probably overdue for it. I had forgotten that. I had forgotten it was not a part of our regular reserves program. And I thought her idea was very good. I'm usually one who gets up and says, when GRF talks about increasing golf fees, I say, please make it just a little bit, please go slowly, because I know people who do budget carefully to play 1 or 2 days a week. And I just didn't want anything to be hurting their chances of playing. But when I heard this, I realized the idea of setting up a separate reserve account just for golf is really something worth considering. It really is. Because it's such a huge, no other amenity takes up the space that golf does. And we know, I think Brad Hudson told us it takes about $3.25 million already per year to provide golf for the community. He said that at a couple board meetings. So add to that then these big expenses coming up, huge expenses, unlike anything with our other amenities. So I hope you will support GRF and tell them, let's consider that. Let's have a separate trust. She said that adding $4 per, round, per dollars per round of golf could cover that, could build that trust, excuse me, I got trust on the brain, could build that reserve for the entire golf course that is so badly needed. And I remember this coming up when I was on one of the boards a few years back, and we just let it slide. We should have addressed it then. I'm so ashamed of that. We just let it slide. But maybe all of you can bring this forth and get it considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is John Beckett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
At last month's board meeting, Mr. Beaumont, United's counsel, urged us to write our elected representative about Senate Bill 1265. This is our elected representative in the Assembly. His name is Matt Harper. I looked up Senate Bill 1265 on the California Legislature's website. Here's what the bill will add to the law. Quote, the legislature hereby finds and declares common interest developments function as quasi-governmental entities, paralleling in many ways the powers, duties, and responsibilities of a local government. It is the intent of the legislature to ensure that democratic principles and practices are followed in the governance of common interest developments. The first democratic principle that SB 1265 will protect is the right to vote. SB 1265 will prohibit, quote, prohibit the denial of a ballot to a member for any reason, unquote. In other words, if you're a member of United, you have the inalienable right to vote for United directors. The second democratic principle that SB 1265 will protect is the right of every member to run for election to the board. 3 years ago, a friend of mine applied to be a candidate for the United board. When the list of candidates was published, my friend's name was missing. He learned that a PCM employee had disqualified him based on an incorrect assumption. SB 25 will prevent this type of interference. It says, quote, an association may only disqualify a member for not being a member, felony conviction, or a failure to pay regular assessments. A candidate may not be disqualified for unpaid fines, collection charges, late charges, or other costs levied by a third party. I guess that means attorney fees. The third democratic principle that SB 1265 will protect is the right to fair and honest elections. In order to ensure that elections are conducted fairly and honestly, the Davis-Sterling Act requires homeowner associations to hire an independent third party to act as inspector of elections. The law currently states an independent third party includes, but is not limited to, a volunteer poll worker with the Orange County, with the County Register of Voters, a licensee of the California Board of Accountancy, or a notary public. SB 1265 will add the following. An independent, quote, an independent third party may not be a business entity who is under contract to the association, unquote. SB 1265 will make it clear that an association's managing agent is not an independent third party. One of the things that, am I out of time? Yes.
Thank you, Joe.
I hope you'll vote, write to the Assemblyman and support 1265.
Thank you, John. Next speaker, Cheryl.
That concludes our speakers.
Oh, my goodness. Surprised. All right, if any of our directors would like to respond to any of the members, if you would push your request to speak button. Seeing none. Oh, sorry. Okay, you were a little late. Andre.
Thank you very much for your comment. I just want to comment on Maxine's request, report on solar heating savings and what kind of refund. We've made several numerous requests in the past. I hope that VMS will provide us that information, and our finance chair will be taking the lead to request that kind of a return, whether we have that kind of financial return or not, and how much money we really saved on that activity, on that undertaken. As far as the golf course not in reserve, I'm a little bit confused. Isn't that a GRF issue, not a United issue? So I'm not sure what we can do about it. So that's my comment. Oh, and additionally, thanks for John Beckett bringing up all these issues and gave us a clear statement of the bill. Thank you.
Maggie?
Thank you. The bill only requires that a person be a resident on the day that they sign up for candidacy. So you could have someone buy in. The day they sign up for candidacy, they move in. And then they go out, having never been here before. That is not a good thing for us. So everyone here has the right to vote. If you are paid up, you can vote. Isn't that right? Yes.
Actually, that bill's been amended extensively. I know because I wrote a number of the amendments. And so the original bill had no qualifications for board members other than being a member. And now we added the felony, 1-year membership is now a requirement, and current on assessments. Those are the 3 major changes that were made to 1265. We are still taking a neutral position on that, and those same amendments have been added to our bill as well. And so, but there are some other things in what we call the Wykowski bill that are still pretty offensive, irrespective of the board member and voter qualifications. For example, the attorney's fees for small claims action. If we brought an action against small claims action for collections against a delinquent member, and they consulted attorney beforehand, and then they prevailed in small claims, we would be on the hook for the attorney's fees that they incurred preparing for small claims. And we're objecting, the CAI is objecting to that provision and a few others. So we still maintain sort of we're neutral. CAI is opposed to the Wachowski bill. So there's other things in there beyond the board member stuff. I think the board member issues have been mostly resolved, but there's other issues that are equally offensive. Jeff may have additional input on that.
I think you summed it up, Brad, and I think the lesson here is that when we talk about pending legislation, it changes daily. And those two bills, Laguna Woods Village Bill, which is a very, very important bill, 1128, and 1265 that Mr. Beckett referenced, are two very important bills. They're getting a lot of attention. And at the end of the day, what I think we can all embrace, which the legislature, in my strong opinion, does not understand, is that, to Mr. Beckett's point, in reading the legislative intent behind 1265, which the author himself cited, communities are like quasi-governments. That's been cited in many proposed laws and in actual law. So why don't they just stick behind that concept and let communities govern themselves and decide whether they want to impose qualifications on directors and not let the legislature force that down communities' throats. So if you want in your bylaws qualifications that ensures you that your members are going to be free of any felony convictions, not just white-collar crime felonies, but felonies involving rape, robbery, arson, kidnapping, murder, etc., then you should be able to do that in your bylaws. If you want in your bylaws qualifications that ensures your candidates for the board are not going to be involved in litigation against your community, because that's a huge disruption to their ability to conduct their job as a director, then you should be able to vote that into your bylaws and to create those types of qualifications and not let the legislature dictate who can run for your boards and who can't. So that's the whole concept here, but these bills are being negotiated and changed on a daily basis.
Thank you. Manuel?
Although Maxine brought up a topic that applies to GRF, I want to thank her for making us aware of what I think is a good suggestion that Catherine Freshney made yesterday. I also want to thank John for his remarks. He made me aware of a bill that I wasn't paying attention to, and I think it's a very important one. So thank you, John. I plan to do some research on that topic myself. Thank you.
Any other directors wish to respond? If not, we'll go on to agenda item number 9, update from VMS, Director Rader.
Good morning. We normally have 2 meetings, but one of the meeting dates fell on July 4th, so I only have 1 meeting to report on. It's not showing up. Huh, that's not what's on my, I have a full screen. If not, I probably can go on.
Try scrolling through to see if
No, it's not going to work. But anyway, I'm sure you can see the slides. It's not supposed to be duplicated. It's supposed to be full screen. So at the meeting I'm going to report on, we received a detailed report from Carrie Weldon, who is head of the Human Resource Department. The Human Resource Department, of course, is involved with hiring, but it's also charged with developing a cohesive team of employees dedicated to performing their job at the highest level. Hi.
Keep on going, I'll see if I can figure it out for you.
Okay, it's no problem. And the way that you fostered this, the way that they do this is they foster a team spirit. We show that we value our employees, and we recognize them for their outstanding service. Towards this end, the HR department provides various employee activities. For example, they have employee barbecue, a Halloween party, a holiday lunch, and they have a wellness expo coming up because we're concerned with the health and well-being of our employees. And we have service recognition awards coming up in October. In fact, if you take the second floor elevator or go to the second floor in this building, and as you exit the elevator, you will see a wall of pictures, and those are people who receive past service recognition awards. We discussed hiring. And as many of you might know, there's very low unemployment in the United States, in particular in Orange County. And what this means is we can't fill positions as quickly as we would like. The HR department takes various actions, and one of which I'm going to point to is they have an employee referral program whereby employees can refer people who might be interested in open positions. I wonder how many people are familiar with the fact that we have a resident referral program, and I want to just spend a few moments telling the residents about this. If you feel that you might know somebody who might be looking for a job, you can get a list of the current job openings that are available in Laguna Woods Village, and you can make a referral for those open positions. You could get a list of the open positions, I believe, at the community center reception desk, but you could also go to the village website and type in careers in the search area. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. If you see that there's a position that might interest somebody that you know, you could go to the second floor, to the human resources area there, and get an employee referral form. And all you have to do is fill out the candidate's contact information. It's real simple. And if your candidate is hired and they complete 4 months of continuous full-time employment, you will receive a financial reward. Now I want to switch over to show you, whoop, I turned my computer off. That was really smart. What I wanted to show you was how to type in on the village website and get the list of open employment. Well, unfortunately, that may not come up. So here's what you do. You go to the village website. At the top, there's a search box. Type in careers. Click on that. And then it comes up and it says, you scroll down and you click on careers. Up comes a screen that says non-resident careers. And you press on that and you see a whole list of available positions. So if you see that there's something that a friend or a relative might be interested in, you now know that that job is available, and you can press a button and get details on the position. And you could then fill out a form. And as I said, you could get a financial reward for that person being hired. And that's one way that we can perhaps speed up the hiring process in a situation where there are not a lot of people looking for jobs. It's almost full employment now. Thank you. Any questions?
If any of the board has questions, please hit your request to speak. Carl?
Dick and Brad, is it not true that any of the residents here cannot obtain full-time employment with VMS? And because there's a lot of people might say, oh, this will be great, I'll put my own name in and I'll reap the reward, okay, and at the same time, there are people that would do that.
Yeah, no, that's not
under the
allowed.
circumstances, it is also my understanding, however, that a resident can only obtain part-time employment within VMS. Is
That's
that
right.
correct?
Right.
Andre?
Okay, you mentioned that we have a referral program and there's a low unemployment rate in Orange County that's resulting in the shortage of people. And I've heard several departments complain about they have shortage of resources in order to fulfill our requirements and take care of the community sometimes, particularly in the landscape department. So is there any plan that we change our hiring policy, any changes possible to make it attractive to more people? On the other hand, I also heard there are people that are 20, 30 years experience with our management system. So there must be something particularly interesting for them to stay with us. What is so attractive for them that we cannot duplicate with our new potential employees? May I ask, has we done any study as far as how to improve that?
The HR department, as I understand it, is presently looking at innovative ways to try to hire more people. And we always are looking for highly qualified people, the best qualified people we could get. So these things are always under constant review.
Cash?
My comment is about Carl Rendazzo's remarks. I think Dick mentioned the jobs that he's looking for are non-resident job openings, which are allowed. Even a resident can recommend a non-resident job opening, like you
Yeah, see, it was unfortunate that I wasn't able to quickly show you the website. It actually says non-resident jobs when you look at it on the
Yes.
website.
Thank you, Dick. We always appreciate your report and all the work you do for us on VMS. Our next agenda item, excuse me, is agenda. Sorry, that's the last one I had. The CEO report, Brad?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, members of the United Community. It's always a pleasure to get a chance to address you and share some of the things that are going on. And we're in the midst of budget processes right now that are extensive and some would even say exhaustive. We had a lot of meetings, a lot of data has been produced. We had a big all boards meeting yesterday, which we kind of provided an overview of the budget. I think it's a good starting place. There will be further meetings, I think, even later this week. I believe that's Thursday. At 9. Yes, right here. I got it right here. Thursday at 9:30. United will continue their budget process. And then there'll be future meetings as well to further refine and ultimately adopt resolutions that finalize the budget. I think I would characterize at least the version 1 for United as probably pretty heavy on manor investments in terms of dealing with dry rot and electrical deficiencies. Certainly very, very high priority is the waistline epoxy program, where we've got a major investment recommended as well. So all those areas and many more are suggested for funding, and we anticipate your review and policy direction on those matters and many others as well. We also are sort of in the midst of, actually the beginning of, an election process for the United Board and actually all the boards. But I did want to point out that at least for United, Friday, August 10th at 5 p.m. is the deadline to submit your self-nomination paper. So if you're interested in serving on the United Board, if you'd please come up to the second floor of the Community Center and talk to Catherine or Whitney or Cheryl, and we'll get you the documents and provide instruction in terms of what you need to do to become a candidate for the board. It's interesting that the legislature chooses to have this legislation, which I think is a little overreaching, and so do others. And the impression is that, that we have all these people that want to be on the board, and we're somehow denying them, which is absolutely false. We go on TV, we send emails. Heck, we'll even knock on your door and ask you, please serve on the board. And so that's really what's gone on. And I remember the first time that I served on an HOA board. It was a small association in Big Bear. I made the mistake of going up. It was a weekend thing, and I went up there, and the knock came on the door. Hey, would you like to be on the board? I said, well, yeah, okay. And so that was like a 5-year stint there of service on that board. And we're not too much different here. We really have to recruit and seek and look for candidates to serve. It's a difficult job. There's a lot of hours. There is some degree of criticism that may come your way, but it's also very rewarding because you're helping real people every day. We mostly don't deal with grand policy issues like most government folks do. We're trying to help people with everyday problems all the time, and I think that's what makes this work so rewarding. So if you're interested in service, or even there's a watchdog role here too, because believe it or not, some folks out in the community are skeptical of what we do here. And so I think that is a value for some members to serve that role and to put a close eye on everything and then to report back, yeah, I looked at that. It seems to be okay, or hey, I found this and they're going to fix it. So I think there's roles on the board for all those kinds of people, and if you're of a mind and you have some time and energy and you like to read really, really thick documents, we want you to run for the board, because we really don't want to appoint by acclamation. We want to have an election here that's competitive with different ideas and thoughts about how the community should be managed. So I encourage you all. I wanted to talk a little bit about our paving program, which is going on right now, and it's pretty extensive. We generally will maintain access in most areas, though at times it doesn't always work out that way. And some of these cul-de-sacs are kind of long. And so if somehow you were kind of blocked out for a while, for some it could be a pretty good hike to get to your car if you were required to, say, locate it on a GRF street or something. And so I wanted to, oh, Eric's going to love this. I wanted to give you a guy's phone number who will arrange for transportation or have your groceries carried in from the car or whatever it is, as we have. And his name was on the notice, and it said, for help, call Eric. And I don't think most people don't understand exactly what kind of help he would provide, but it would pretty much be any kind of help. And much like we do when we do elevator rehab, sometimes those things are out for weeks as we're doing a major rehab on an elevator, and somebody who is not that ambulatory has a critical medical appointment, we have Care Ambulance come and take them to their appointment. And so this is only going to be for a day or two, so I don't expect we'll have a ton of those kind of calls, but we may have somebody that runs out of milk or needs dog food or whatever, but can't get in and out in an efficient way, and so we can try to help with that. So call Eric. I don't even want to try to pronounce his last name. It's Schneekloef, I believe, but it's don't even try to spell it. But you can reach him at 268-2427. So if you have some issues as this seal coating and paving work is occurring, please call him and we'll make sure and try to get whatever you need in and out of there, or if it's you, we'll get you in and out of there and provide whatever assistance we can. Again, these things only last a day or two, so I'm not expecting a whole bunch of issues, but if they come up, let's try to address them. I just want to report on the handyman. I'm sure many of you know, but I think we've got about 100 contracts in place right now, maybe a little bit more. And I've gotten nothing but rave reviews from the residents that have contacted me. There's been a number of them that have said thanks for having the program. And, I had him come out to work on 2 or 3 things, and, on his way out, he noticed this or that and just fixed it on his own. And so that's what we want to happen, and to be proactive, to provide a lot of customer service. And so I'm very pleased with that. A lot of talk about the gates. We just finished rehabbing gate 10. We're almost done with 11. This is just the gate house in preparation for the technology and the security arms that are coming a little bit later this year. 11 is just about done, and then I think they'll go to 12 after that. Siobhan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's right. And I think 4 comes after that. And 4, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do there. They don't have much to start with at 4. Some of the other gates were more elaborate, gatehouses were more elaborate, but also had a lot of dry rot and electrical problems and other things, so they required more work. 4, they're not starting with much, so I think there'll be significant improvements, and hopefully it will function a little bit better as well. I did want to share, and maybe this will come up in a later report, that the PAC Advisory Committee met, or task force met last week, and had basically decided to go forward with a large maintenance project for the PAC, which would include all the safety, code, fire, ADA improvements, as well as a major HVAC program there. And so they're taking a slow approach to that, and as many on this board had advocated for, and I certainly want to thank the advisory committee or the task force who's helped with that, as well as all the corporate members who have weighed in with their thoughts on that project. And I think we've got a good, important step to take over the next year or two to complete those improvements, which are pretty desperately needed. Many of you have probably experienced this already, but we've added some electronic contact functionality to our resident and property services modules. And so now when you call in and report an issue, you'll get a nice text and email from us saying, hey, we got your request. And then when the guy's on his way to your house, you'll get another one. Hey, Jose's going to be there, and at 12:30, and so you'll know. And then after the fact, we'll send you another text and email asking if you're happy with the service, and I think asking you if you'd like to fill out a survey of some sort. So, and then next is coming tracking and some other things. So we've got some good functionality coming out of that, and we've also extended that same sort of process to lease expiration as well. So when leases expire or getting ready to expire, there'll be an automatic email will go. Subleases, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm talking to United. Sublease termination dates are coming up, and there'll be a notice that goes to both the sublessor and the sublessee, notifying them that their sublease is getting ready to expire, and attaching the form which they must fill out if they want to extend that. Again, less of an issue in United, but an issue nonetheless, as you have far fewer subleases and leases than they do, say, in Third. So anyway, that's an important feature, and we're looking to extend that to some other things like the caregiver registration processes that we require, and other things. It'll just be automatic rather than relying on some sort of paper notification system and somebody thumbing through a checklist or something. These will just be automatic notes that go out to people reminding them of certain things that they need to do. And so it's not the end, it's really just the beginning of a process and a program that kind of looks like a CRM, but isn't really one quite yet. So we talked about this yesterday a bit. Anyway, I did want to announce, and I know I've talked about this before, some new cable services. One is we've got an awesome new music service on our cable network called Stingray. And it's either, depending on whether you have a box or not, it's either 50.1 to 50.50, I think, or it's 900 to 950 if you have a box. And that is awesome digital music right to your manor all day, every day. And also, and this is very cool, there is a mobile application as well that you can download on your phone, so you can listen to free music, 50 different genres, anytime, anywhere on your mobile phone, free of charge if you're a village resident. So there you go. And that actually was at no cost to us. Actually, we might have saved a little money because we got rid of an old system that was very inefficient and expensive, and we picked up this one, which is very cool and efficient. And I think you're going to like that. And then we have, and I think we'll be sending out something the next week or so, a new awesome digital guide for our cable users that is state-of-the-art. Again, no cost, because we're already paying license fees for a really lousy guide. And now those same fees are being applied to a great digital guide that has much more functionality, much more information, has search capabilities, all sorts of things that you're really, really going to like. And so I've heard complaints about the guide for years. And now we're addressing it. We've got a very cost-effective and high-tech solution that I think people are going to like. The bandwidth improvement program continues, and that's the fancy marketing name we gave to getting rid of analog service in our community. And so we've deleted another batch of channels, and our bandwidth continues to grow. If you remember, a year ago, we were struggling to provide, 20 megabits down to our residents, and now we can easily provide 100 and probably a couple hundred by the end of the year. So if you want to watch Netflix or Hulu or any of these other over-the-top streaming services, we have plenty of bandwidth to accommodate that, and we certainly support those residents who choose to take control of their own TV viewing experience, and we want to support them as well. If you do happen to have an old analog TV that you would like to dispose of, please call Resident Services, and I will send somebody by to pick it up. Do not, I repeat this, do not put it out by the trash can, because then I got to send 2 guys in a truck. It's much easier if you call and we schedule it and we come get it. And while I'm on the subject, the amount of illegal dumping in the community continues to grow. I now have, and you are paying for, through your assessments, 2 full-time people to drive around the community and to pick up things that people illegally put out by the trash can. Furniture, mattresses, construction debris. It's about 40 cubic yards a day that they pick up. And so if you want to do something to keep assessments down, don't put that stuff out by the trash can. If you call us up, Waste Management is obligated to come and pick it up from your manor for free. But if you put it out by a trash can, we have to pick it up. And so please don't do that. Call us up. We'll send somebody out to your manor to pick it up, and Waste Management will pay the bill. It's much better for everyone. I did just want to share, I know there were some stops and starts on Edison's project. We're going to start in July. Now it looks like it's going to be the beginning of August. They are taking responsibility for communication on that, so they'll be sending residents letters directly. When we get copies of those, we'll resend them out through an e-blast and other communication just to make sure everybody gets a couple of shots at it. But they're going to be in our community replacing some basic infrastructure, which I think is a really good thing, because we have a lot more outages here than I would expect from a community of this size. Seems like it's pretty steady. So steady that I actually have a person who works for us to monitor it and to let us know when things are going out and why, and so we can rebroadcast that to the community. So I think that's a good thing. I also did want to just remind folks about golf cart registration. We still have several hundred carts that have not been registered. And right now, it's just kind of a friendly thing. I don't think we're charging for that. Just come over and we'll give you the stickers you need. But if you don't do that pretty soon, then it probably gets to be more of a compliance issue. So if you have a golf cart, you don't have the current stickers, just drive over here with the registration or certificate of ownership, and we'll take care of that for you. No charge. And then I did want to also point out that, and I'm sure Maggie will cover this, the meeting on July 19th at 9, Landscape Committee, to talk about a number of things, but in particular pesticides, I think, which is always topical. And then I also wanted to point out that there are, I think, pretty big changes coming to the El Toro I-5 interchange. And they're at the very beginning of an environmental process to analyze alternatives and to conduct probably an extensive environmental impact report, environmental impact statement to address those alternatives and to select one basically for our community and many others. And so that process has an extensive public outreach and input aspect to it, and the kind of the start of that is July 25th at 5:30. And so I'm sure that residents will be there. I can guarantee you that Siobhan will be there, and board members will attend. And so I think if you're interested in such matters and want to maybe provide some input as they begin the process of analyzing potential alternatives and impacts, that you might want to participate in that. So I make that available to them. And then lastly, I wanted to thank residents and our recreation staff for the wonderful 4th of July event. And there were, I think, over 1,500 people that attended, and it was very orderly, and everybody had a good time. I can't think of a single incident that's been reported to me. Doesn't mean there wasn't any, but they weren't reported to me, which is a good thing. And so I have gotten a lot of very nice emails from residents thanking us for the event. And I know Brian and his team and volunteers from the community who help strive every year to make it a little bit better. And I think they achieved that this year. So with that, I would entertain any questions the board may have.
Thank you. If there are any directors who wish to speak, please indicate with your request to speak button. Cash, you're first.
Well, Brad, you've been doing an excellent work, excellent job, putting a great team. I would like to make one comment. You mentioned about people getting on elections. I think Ross Cortese had a great idea starting this community 60, 50 some years ago. But what made it survive is the volunteerism of people. So it's not just elections and getting on board that I'm talking about. We need volunteers because we have more than 500,000 man-hours of expertise that comes in the retirees. And, we can use talents. I met one lady the other day. All she was saying here, how our landscape can be improved. I have ideas. I said, yes, then come on the July 19th or whatever that meeting and talk about it. And she said, yes, I will. So, she knows who I'm talking about. Well, thank you very much and keep up the good work.
We do have a lot of volunteers here. And I know for us who are sort of in the governance arena, we think about the volunteer service that our board members provide. But if you go out to the clubhouses and the clubs and fitness, and there are so many volunteers, and we have this huge event every year that, it's you can't hardly have a place big enough to hold that event. There's so many of them, and when they start calculating the hours that they contribute and the dollar value associated with that, it's just a huge number. And so we have plenty plenty of volunteerism here. We always use more. There's a lot to be done, but I do think you're right, Cash. A lot of great volunteers here.
Andre?
Yes, I'm also interested. I think it's exciting that it's your election process, and Cash made a good point about our volunteers. What I'm thinking is our volunteers clubs have a lot of the presidents and the board members. They also are volunteering doing these things. So it's just one step further for them to step into this board activities and get involved and help us out. And they have the ground experience to, serving the people, understand their needs. So is it possible that we make some broadcasts to these club presidents and groups and tell them that these are the deadlines, these are the processes, and that will help them understand it, get awareness, and also probably just make some brochures, handouts to the clubhouses, because there are a lot of people that have activities in there. Also, you mentioned that August 10th, I repeat, August 10th is the deadline for applying for board members. So that's a very important date, and we would like everybody to remember that. People here sitting in the audience are very interested in all these activities, and I would highly encourage everybody to get involved in helping out, providing the services our residents need. It's our business. It's something that we help ourselves. So that's the one that I'm hoping that we can get words across. Also, you mentioned the music channels and the bandwidth expansions. Thank you very much. Tonight, when I go home, I'm going to retune my TV and see if I can receive all those channels. Thank you very much.
You'll have to. I should have said this. You do have to rescan your channels to get some of this stuff. So make sure if you changed your service a little bit or you haven't rescanned recently, that you go ahead and do that. That's important. I did want to address your first comment, though. We've tasked Eileen, and I know Juanita and the third president are meeting with her to develop, I think she's already got a plan, but she's got to share it with you and you have to prove it, to go ahead and do more outreach, whether it be through printed material, e-blast, TV6, article in the Breeze, all those sorts of things, to try to raise the level of awareness in terms of community service as a board of director member.
Manuel?
Thank you, Juanita. Yesterday at the GRF planning meeting, Brad made some comments regarding some questions that were raised about the contribution for the reserve funds. And I want to compliment Brad on him holding the ground firmly, because his proposed budget actually contained several dollars reduction in the monthly contribution from reserves. And Brad seemed to recognize that each of our mutuals have financial pressures to meet their needs as far as infrastructure improvements or maintenance. So again, thank you, Brad. Hold that ground. Don't cave.
I'm trying. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Cash, you only get to speak once. All right, I'd like to go, is there any other director? I'd like to make one comment, just in addition to the July 25th meeting where Caltrans is looking at what they're going to do to redo the 5 El Toro, et cetera. It probably will affect our Gate 6 more than anything else. But of course, anything coming in and out of this community that goes on El Toro will be affected. And in that announcement, the mayor of Laguna Woods also announced Laguna Hills 5 Laguna Mall is pretty well dead. They are not going to continue with that, and the developer wants to put condos there. So that is going to be more traffic problems that will have to be addressed by Caltrans when they're looking at all of this. So if you're interested in all of those, on July 25th at City Hall, 5 o'clock at night, please come and show your support. All right, the next item on our agenda is our consent calendar. And this time, we have 3 actions from the Alterations Committee. We have 4 actions from the Landscape Committee and 1 from the Finance Committee. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Gary? And a second?
A second.
Janie? Okay. Excuse me. Do I have any director who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. We will approve the consent calendar as it is printed. Please use your voting buttons.
My button, I'm not working.
Too hard, too hard. Well, it isn't.
All right, would you verbally give your vote to Cheryl, please?
Yes.
All right, the vote is 8 in favor and 2 abstaining, so this consent calendar passes. Next item on our agenda is our unfinished business. Now, to remind everybody, unfinished business is something that has been presented to the board before. And the secretary will read the resolution. All of the supporting material is in here. We are not going to read all of the supporting material anymore. We hope this will help shorten our meetings. If you in our audience at home or here are interested, it is part of the agenda package. And you can either pick it up here if you don't have computer access, or you can get it on your computer. So we're trying to shorten a little bit of what we have to say at each meeting. Excuse me. Following the motion and a second, directors can request to vote, request to speak. Each one can speak once. So please have your thoughts together. All right, we'll start with 12A, and that is a motion to adopt revisions to the United Architectural Standard number 10 on dishwashers.
Resolution 0118XX resolve revise alteration standard 10 dishwashers. Whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend alteration standards and create new alteration standards as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to revise alteration standard 10 dishwashers, now therefore be it resolved July 10th, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts the revised Standard 10 dishwashers as attached to the official meeting minutes. Resolved further that Resolution U-9662, adopted May 14th, 1996, is hereby superseded and canceled. Resolved further that the officers and or agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written. I move this resolution.
This resolution has satisfied the 30-day notice. All right, it's been, the motion's been made by Maggie and seconded by Janie. Do I have any directors who wish to speak on this? Okay, what happened? All right, I just have the resolution, but I don't have my few speakers.
Nope, mine's not working.
I see that there are 2 that want to speak.
I request to speak.
Yes, I understand that, but I have to get it on my computer. That's what I'm asking Cheryl. I'm not getting it on my computer. Okay. All right. Maggie, you asked to speak first.
No, that was to read it. Sorry, I thought I had to.
Okay, all right. Andre?
If you look at agenda item 12A, page 4 of 7,
We're on two.
the original, 2.1, the original statement was, shall be repaired to match existing cabinets. It didn't require an alteration. Now we reconsider an alteration, so we need to put in permits. Now, the question I have is, by going through the permit, it takes longer time, takes more decisions, and a resident need to wait until the approval, and it takes staffs more time to go through all these permits. Am I correct in that aspect?
Kurt, can I ask you to speak to that, please? Kurt Weiland is our Director of Motion Intrusion.
This standard would require a permit anyway. It wouldn't require a separate permit for countertops. It just says once you change the original mutual provided counters to add a dishwasher, if you have to alter them, those cabinets are now considered an alteration as opposed to being stocked. So the mutual will no longer maintain a countertop that's been altered to accept a dishwasher.
But if this is a replacement of a standard dishwasher by
Then
the
this doesn't-
cooperative, then this
doesn't apply.
This does not apply.
This only applies
Okay.
to new installations of dishwashers.
All right, thank you. Maxine?
Thank you. He just answered my question. I just hope everybody was listening. This doesn't apply to people who are having a current covered dishwasher replaced, only somebody installing a new one. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Correct. Okay. It's time to vote. All of those, please hit your voting buttons.
No, I vote yes.
All right, the vote passes. The resolution passes 10-0. We'll go to 12B, and I'll entertain a motion to rescind United's Architectural Standard 21 patio covers for wood only. 30-day notification has been satisfied. Would you read that, please, Maggie?
Rescind Standard 21 patio cover wood. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend alteration standards and create new alteration standards as necessary, and whereas the mutual desires to limit the amount of wood products used in the village, alteration standard 21 patio covers wood should be rescinded in its entirety. Now therefore be it resolved July 10, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby rescinds Resolution 010819 adopted February 12, 2008, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written. I move this resolution.
Okay, do I have a second? Janie? Okay. I have one director who wishes to speak.
Yes.
Maggie?
Please note, Standard 20 allows aluminum and vinyl balcony and patio covers. So aluminum and vinyl patio covers are on Standard 20. This does not touch that. This only rescinds the wood. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more requests to speak, I'll ask for the vote.
Yes or no? Just say
You
yes.
can abstain?
Yes, we can abstain.
Yeah, I did, but it's not showing.
Let's just tell her you will abstain.
Abstain.
All right, the vote is 8 for, 2 abstentions, so this resolution passes. Number 12C, entertain a motion to adopt a resolution for amending the current resale documents.
Whereas, under the United Laguna Woods Mutual bylaws, the purpose of United is to provide housing to its members on a mutual nonprofit basis. Whereas United is a stock cooperative corporation, and as such, each member is issued a membership stock certificate in United and granted the exclusive right to occupy a specific unit under the terms and conditions of an occupancy agreement. Whereas pursuant to the bylaws, articles of incorporation and rules, regulations, and board resolutions, members must meet various requirements and qualifications prior to acquiring a membership stock certificate and obtaining membership. Whereas Article 3 of the bylaws requires membership applications and related documents to be presented on forms approved by the board. Whereas Article 3 of the bylaws further provides various qualifications for membership and occupancy of units in United, including, among others, age and financial requirements. Whereas United by and through its board of directors uses various forms and documents for the resale of memberships in United, including forms and documents used by members and prospective members for purposes of transferring memberships and the right to exclusively occupy units. Whereas the board of directors through the governing documents review committee has identified modifications needed to resale documents to meet United's current needs, especially modifications necessary to address current rules, regulations, and resolutions, to update terminology, to allow alterations to units to be identified, to update staff names and contact information, etc. Now therefore be it resolved, July 10th, 2018, that the Board of Directors hereby approves amending the United Mutual resale documents. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of United hereby adopts the resale documents in their amended form as attached hereto as Attachment 2, effective August 1st, 2018. Be it further resolved that the officers, directors, and agents of United are authorized to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move this resolution.
Do I have a second? Don. It's been moved by Maggie and seconded by Don. And I see we do have some discussion on it. Okay, Cash.
Thank you, President. If you look at page 11, I would like to suggest a few minor changes here or modifications. I'll go by page, number 11 of 54. Item G, cohabitant should be cohabitants, plural. Then further down, item K, corporation, United Non-Profit Mutual Benefit Corporation should be reworded. Further down, under N, identification ID card, and second line, it says, and lessees, should be sublessees. I do have more on other pages also.
All right. Are these types of things that you've been talking about? Because
Yes.
these are what we consider Scribner's errors, and we will make those,
Okay.
we'll have
Okay, there's one
the
thing I would
secretary
like
do these
to-
things. If there's anything that changes the intent and content are ones that we would have to send it back on.
Okay, on page 18 of 54, item I, resale notification says guarantor statement plus financial verification. We are no longer allowing guarantors.
That's correct.
That should be out. Then further on page 20 of 54, item 2A, administration fee, United, $350. Then there's an asterisk that says additional fee of $280 applies for all cash sales in United. Why do we need to charge people who are bringing in cash money to charge another $280 for them? Any reason? I would like to know.
Do you have any more?
I have one more.
Okay.
On page 27, payment option number 2 talks about the total principal amount of $52.52 plus interest at 2% per annum. I think that is a little erroneous. It should be 3%, but I may be wrong. I referred to a calculator and came up with that. So I would like you to verify whether that number is correct.
All right. I believe Betty did.
I have one more.
Okay.
On page 41, under Article 17, we are talking about inspection of dwelling unit, but what about the annual inspection? We have no mention about the annual inspection in this paragraph.
This is the original 50-year-old occupancy
Right.
agreement. And so we have not made any changes to it, and we probably won't, because like the bylaws, it would require us going out to all of the members for a vote. And so there are things, for instance, you'll see some of the other ones that really don't apply anymore, such as Article 7, subletting prohibited. We have passed rules since then that said subletting is permitted, so under certain circumstances. So we don't change the wording in the occupancy agreement at all.
Okay.
Can I call Pamela?
Thank you.
Can you come up, please? By the way, I really want to thank both Cash and Carl, who not only took the time to read this huge package and all of the supporting documents, but to send those to me over the weekend with questions so that we could look at those and see if they were Scribner's errors or substantial things that needed to do. It's very important that the board members do this and do it in the form that needs to be done rather than just bring them up as you have at this meeting. We did look at these beforehand because you had given them all to us beforehand. So I do appreciate that. All right. Pamela, can you speak to some of these, like the administration fee?
Are you referring to the $350 fee?
No, the 280 cash, for all cash sales.
So that has to do with a change in California law. When redevelopment fees were taken away from cities, Sacramento was looking at a way to provide for affordable housing. And so they added an additional $75 fee per document that is recorded. And in United Mutual, when a document is recorded, that is a memorandum of termination of occupancy by the seller and a memorandum of occupancy by the buyer. And so the two of those numbers were added to the original recording fee. And that's the only way that we can assure custody of title. Prior to recording these, the corporation had difficulty filing liens because the court required a chain of title. And so these public recordings provide that now.
We don't have any title here in United.
The right to occupy.
The right to
The tax assessor's office looks at it a little differently, and so it's the only way that we can provide what the courts need. They recognize United Mutual owns the real property, but the shareholder has the right to occupy.
And that's different because someone paid cash instead of,
Correct. So if there's a lender, NCB is recording that
right.
change.
Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome. I think the other question you had, Cash, related to the GRF trust facility fee and the calculation, and I have spoken to Betty Parker, and GRF is already looking at this document, and they're in the process of clarifying the language. So,
Thank you.
And we will take out some of the things that you noticed, such as the guarantor statement, et cetera. And there's one other document that somehow or other did not get the changes that had been put in and still referenced Third Mutual and Mutual 50. And those will be also taken out for the final. We did recognize those. But again, thank you very much for your diligence in looking at all of this. All right. Maggie?
I find on page 9 of 54, only 2 statements that need to be required from this whole page. Pages 7 and 8 of 54 contain all the information on 9 of 54, which is very clear on 7 and 8. The only thing missing is the bottom paragraph and the statement, only completed form submittals shall be accepted. Failure to provide accurate contact information can delay the process. In fact, you could probably stick both of those things over on the other page or extend that to page 2. Because when reading page 7 and 8, the steps are clear, and number 9 seems to be a combination and rewording and readjusting of it, and it is more confusing than informative, I believe.
I'd like to speak to that, and that is there for 2 different uses. And that's why there's 2 different documents. One is an initial document, if information you need, if you want to buy or sell a share. And then the other one is just the cover page that goes with the resale documents and has the table of contents on the other side. So that's why there is duplication. Okay, do I have comments or questions from anybody else? Andre?
Yes, as far as re-inspection, the inspection fee, I have some questions on that. When I purchased my unit, I noticed the screen door was missing. So before I signed the escrow, I noticed that screen door was missing. So I made the effort to tell my real estate agent that the screen door is missing. They need to provide a screen door because I know that is the United property with a screen door. However, after I sign my escrow and come back and pick up the house, pick up the unit, the screen door was still missing. So I asked the resident service, say, you did a re-inspection, how come you didn't find it? The response was, well, we didn't see that's a problem, so at that time it must be there. So is it possible that during the inspection that we have the buyer goes along with the inspector, so make sure that all the findings are recorded? Because at that time, later on when I tried to talk to resident services, the resident services said, if we didn't mark it, it must be there, so it's not our problem anymore. And so I had to make sure the real estate agent provide that screen door to me. At this point, the inspection is not accompanied by the buyer. Is it possible that we add that in the process?
Thank you, Andre. We have heard this before. You moved in many years ago, 4 years ago, perhaps. It was a different management company. It was a different resident services. Now, that would not be a problem, and any buyer has the right to be there. They're not required to be there for an inspection, but they have that right if they want to do it. So hopefully that would take care of that. All right, I have no more requests to speak, and so let's vote on 12C, the current resale documents, excuse me. Okay, would you all vote, please?
John, can I have your verbal vote, please?
Yes?
We see the timer on the screen.
Yeah, we're not seeing the vote.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. All right, the vote is 9 in favor and 1 abstention. And so the motion passes, the resolution passes. We'll now go to 12D. That's a motion to reintroduce a resolution for temporary container policy. And the 30-day notification has been satisfied. Madam Secretary?
Temporary container policy. Whereas the placement of temporary containers such as dumpsters, portable storage units, pods, and contractor trailers has caused safety and mobility concerns throughout the village, and whereas staff has developed a policy that addresses these concerns, now therefore be it resolved, July 10, 2018, that the Board of Directors hereby adopts the proposed temporary container policy as attached to the official meeting minutes. Resolved further, after a 24-hour notice from the contractor or member, including weekends, the Security Division will provide members and contractors locations to place these items. Resolved further, the safety, placement, and housekeeping of these items are the responsibility of the member. Resolved further, the mutual reserves the right to remove or relocate any item to remedy an unsafe condition. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this corporation, of this resolution, sorry. I move this resolution.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Carl. It's been moved by Maggie and seconded by Carl. I see no requests. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Carl?
As you indicated before, I had made some editorial comments over the weekend and what have you on the actual container policy document, okay? So I was just wondering if they had been
Yes,
addressed.
they are. And of course, it's not in here because these have already been published
Right.
and printed. But those remarks were given to the corporate secretary, and they will be reflected because they were fairly minor.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I will ask for the vote. Okay. The vote was 10 in favor and none against. Therefore, this resolution will pass. The next agenda item we have is Agenda 13, which is our new business. These are the first reading of items that are brought before the board. 30-day notification is required for most of them. There are a couple that do not require the 30-day notification, primarily the first one. And so we will have it read and vote on that. The other ones will be put forward to our August meeting And if there are any comments from our residents or from other members of the board, questions, things that you want clarified, we have 30 days to do that and make those corrections before it comes to the board for a final vote in August. So, Madam Secretary, will you please read 13A?
I'm looking for it. I do not have it. I do not have a pink page, so.
We did not prepare a resolution.
There is no pink page. Okay.
The action item is just to approve the signing.
Yeah, it's not a resolution, that's why you don't have a
Right, okay.
pink page. So if you would just read the recommendation.
Okay. Entertain a motion to recommend approval for signature and recording of the proposed amendment to the Golden Rain Foundation Trust Agreement to extend the term for 20 years from March to 2024.
In addition, this will be voted on by the corporate members
Yeah.
in August.
Okay, in addition, this will be voted on by the corporations in August at a corporate meeting.
Okay, I might mention that each of the mutuals, each of the associations, GRF and the mutuals, have this on their agenda, their open agenda, so that we pass our approval of this, and then it goes to the corporate members in August for final decision. And do I have a second to Maggie's motion? Janie?
I move this, I'm sorry, I move this
I thought you said-
recommendation.
See, I'm way ahead of you. Now, I might also mention that there are a number of things in the trust agreement that have been questioned and updates that felt need to be made and those kinds of things. We don't want to muddy the waters by doing it before we extend it. We extend it, and then I am forming a task force underneath our Governing Documents Committee, which will be chaired by Director Armendariz and include Ms. Blackwell and myself, and Mary Stone as a member advisor. And we will be looking at the trust in detail to bring forth to this board any recommendations that we have for further amendments. But let's get this done first, and then we have time to do the other afterwards. So I'd like to call for the vote.
Yes.
All right, the vote is 9 yes and 1 abstain, so the motion passes. We'll look at 13B, and this is a motion to introduce a resolution for revisions to the architectural standard number 11 on doors, exterior doors. So, Madam Secretary, if you would read this one, please.
Revise alteration standard 11 doors exterior. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend alteration standards and create new alteration standards as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to revise alteration standard 11 doors exterior. Now therefore be it resolved June 12, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby introduces revisions to Alteration Standard 11 Doors Exterior attached as part of the official minutes. Resolved further that Resolution 01-10-269, adopted December 14, 2010, is hereby superseded and canceled. Resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written. I move this resolution.
Do Do I have a second? Cash, thank you.
Second, with the exception that now resolved further, it should be June 12th date. It used to be July 10th.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I know you're up to
Given the
speak, so go ahead, what?
The date.
Oh, yes,
then
no, this.
Therefore resolved.
If you'll
should be
notice,
July.
the date says that this is when it was introduced. When the final resolution comes up after our 30-day, it will have another date.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it specifically says that the Board of Directors hereby
Sorry about that.
introduces
Okay.
this. So, all right, yes. No, yeah, that's right, your button's not working, sorry.
I've got a question for Kurt before we vote. Why is it that we're not allowed to replace door frames?
You are allowed to replace door frames, it just requires a variance. It affects the structure of the home.
It just says door frames may not be replaced.
Under the standard. Anything not covered under standards are variances.
Okay, thank you.
Remember, what we're trying to do here is to have as many standards as possible that staff can handle without having to go through the cost and time of a variance. So I have no other speakers, so let's go to the vote. All right, the vote, the motion passes unanimously, and this will go forward to our August meeting. Now we're looking at 13D, a resolution for revision to United Architectural Standard Number 14, exhaust fans.
13.
Wait, we need to. 13C would be
C.
next.
13C.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one, didn't I? Thank you very much. All right, 13C, revisions to United Architectural Standard 13, lifts and lift policy.
Yes, right. Revise Alteration Standard 13 lifts. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend alteration standards and create new alteration standards as necessary. Whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognized the need to revise Alteration Standard 13, lifts and lift policy. Whereas Resolution U0196 established the precedent of using a single source for acquisition and installation of lifts on behalf of members of, I would add of, whereas Resolution U0077 and U0122 established policies for verifying the authenticity of the disability of the requester and the notification of adjacent neighbors. Now therefore be it resolved July 10th, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby introduces the following revisions to the Alteration Standard 13, lifts and lift policy, attached as part of the official minutes of this meeting. Resolved further, single source procurement shall be permitted in the acquisition and installation of mechanical lifts. Resolved further that resolutions U0196, U0077, and U0122 are hereby superseded and canceled, and resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written. I move this resolution.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Janie. It's been moved by Maggie and seconded by Janie that this be sent forward to our August meeting. I do have speakers. Thank you. Cash?
The United Laguna Woods Mutual is abbreviated as UL8M at two places. Just a typographic error, but needs to be corrected.
All right,
In the
thank you.
parentheses, two parentheses. on page 4 of 10.
Okay, in the staff report, not in the resolution. There's no problem with the resolution. All right, thank you. Carl?
As I mentioned in my comments over the weekend, the staff report mentions a certain vendor, only because I guess the fact is that we get to own this lift and maintain it after it gets installed. So as a result of that, we become fully responsible for it, which means spare parts and maintenance and what have you, and learning the intricacies of that particular piece of equipment. Obviously, they're probably all the same, but there may be certain idiosyncrasies with that one versus another one. So in the staff report, they indicated here that the lift manufacturer should be this Savaria V1504 and not this Concord PAL, whatever it was, okay, or equal. And in the mechanical lift policy itself now, it does not mention a vendor to be used or an approved equal. The word "or equal" is used in the staff report. Actually, it should be actually "or approved equal," because of the fact that we get to actually own this thing and maintain it and carry spare parts for it and what have you. So I had that question over the weekend, and I was wondering how that might get resolved, or maybe no one really cares.
Okay. I'll turn that over to Kurt. And I just want to say thank you to the staff who has agreed to be here this morning to answer these questions for us.
The manufacturer is mentioned in the standard, section 8. If you're looking just policy, look at the next page, standard, page 5, 6 of 10, section 8. Just good for that one. And just for the clarification of the board, this is a unique standard that we have. And as far as this answers your question, as far as the approved equal goes also, this whole process is run by staff. It's basically the member that wants to install a lift pays, and to simplify it, pays staff to hire a consultant, an architect, and a contractor to install this. The member has no say, no part of this other than to pay for it. So if, any equal would be approved by us because we're the one that's hiring them, if that answers your question. And the original manufacturer doesn't make that unit anymore.
Right, that I understood because I read that in the report. But you don't think that the words "or approved equal" should be used? The word "or equal" is
I
the
can
same
change
thing.
it, it's not a big deal.
Okay, thank you.
Maggie?
I think I just wanted to say that maybe I misunderstood. I don't want the name of the company in the actual
No,
resolution.
it's not in the resolution.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay. Janie?
Just for information, if a member would like to have a lift installed, they can pay for the full amount or get the building to share, the members in the building. I understand the costs are around $40,000 to $50,000, am I correct? Oh, there's 60, I'm sorry, inflation, we just went up. Anyways, just for your information, so it is done by the member that requests it, and they has to pay the full amount if the rest of the members in the building do not want to participate.
Thank you. Mary Stone? Oh, I'm sorry, I had Cash.
Not by mistake, no.
No? Okay. Mary?
Mary Stone, 356C. In your resolution, it says that resolution U0077 and U0122 established policies for verifying the authenticity of the disability of the requester. And then further down, you cancel that. But when I look at the proposed mechanical lift policy, it doesn't show any way of establishing or verifying the authenticity of the disability. So how is staff going to verify the disability?
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is, I'd like to point out, is in a lot of other communities that accommodate a disability, when the person with the disability leaves, the accommodation must be removed. And I think that is something we should have considered a long time ago.
Well, since it goes to us and we own it, we're not going to remove it. All right, Maxine?
Thank you. Looking at the top of page 5 of 10, under 13C, I'm just looking at the little introductory paragraph, before a wheelchair lift can be installed onto mutual property, right at the top there on 5 of 10. Why don't we leave out the word wheelchair? Some people are on elbow crutches, and they might have to be on elbow crutches the rest of their lives, and they can't climb those stairs. Some people may be on a walker for a long period of time. Why don't we just say before a lift can be installed or before a permanent lift can be installed? Would you please consider that? Either leave it out or use the word permanent.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I don't have any other requests to speak, so I will call for the vote.
Yes.
Cash, can I have your vote?
Sorry.
All right, the vote is 10 to nothing. It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we go to 13D. This is a motion for a resolution for revisions to the United Architectural Standard 14 on exhaust fans. Madam Secretary.
Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to revise Alteration Standard 14 exhaust fan vent installations. Now therefore be it resolved July 10, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby introduces revisions to Alteration Standard 14 exhaust fan vent installations attached as part of the official minutes of this meeting. Resolved further that Resolution 0103-153, adopted November 2003, is hereby superseded and canceled. Resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written. I move this resolution.
Do I have a second? Cash, thank you. Okay. I don't see any speakers, so let's call for the vote.
Reza, can I have your vote?
All right, the vote is unanimous for the revisions to this standard. This will be brought to our August meeting as the other ones were. We now go to 13E, and I would entertain a motion to introduce a resolution for an unauthorized alteration fee. And this, again, would be 30 days and go to our next meeting.
Whereas the mutual has seen an increase in unauthorized alterations, And whereas significant staff time is necessary to investigate, document, and process unauthorized alteration incidents, now therefore be it resolved July 10, 2018, that the Board of Directors hereby introduces the unauthorized alteration fee. Resolved further, effective September 1, 2018, the administrative fee for processing mutual consents after the fact will be $300. Resolved further, the fee shall be in addition to board-approved mutual consent processing fees. Resolved further, payment of the unauthorized alteration fee does not preclude the member from disciplinary action by the board. Resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move this resolution.
May I have a second? Thank you, Cash. Okay, I have no speakers, so we will vote. All those in favor of this resolution? All right, it is unanimous. Thank you all.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, Janie, you didn't request to speak.
As the chair of the ACSC committee, I'd like to thank Kurt and all of his staff for the hard work that he's done to standardize a lot of these issues that we've had and save us a lot of time and our staff a lot of staff time and money. Thank you so much. We appreciate it from the committee and from, I hope, the board. Thank you.
All right, Cash.
I just second that, Kurt. You've been doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. And I'll remind you, Janie, you need to press your request to speak.
Have a request to speak?
You made a comment without. All right. All right, we will go down to committee reports. And 14A is the report from our Finance Committee with our Treasurer, Director Morrison.
Slide 1, please. Okay, the total revenues as of May 31st, 2018 were $16,918,000, as opposed to expenses, total expenses of $16,347,000. Therefore, we're positive revenue of $571,000. Slide 2, please. Thank you. Through May, United was better than budget by $678,000, primarily due to the timing of expenditures. And those would be employee compensation. We had savings due to vacant positions in maintenance, and we're actively recruiting. Materials and supplies, more cost-effective products selected for water heater replacements. Building structures, we have design work in progress for the Castilla and La Corona structure repairs. Landscape revitalization, scope of work not yet determined for this reserve program. Pest control fumigation program started in May and will be completed in November. Our total non-assessment revenues were $609,324, of which 23% was due to interest income, 22% fees, charges to residents, 18% laundry, 12% miscellaneous. Okay, slide 4, please. Total expenses of $16,347,285 were made up of 36% employee comp and related expenses, 26% property and sales taxes, 13% outside services, 10% utilities and telephones. Okay, slide 5, please. Non-operating fund balances, we had a beginning balance of $22,433,000. We had contributions of $5,112,000, expenditures of $4,127,000, with a current balance as of 5/31/2018 of $23,418,000. Okay, our delinquencies, which includes payments through June the 25th of 2018, we had a current month of 12 totaling $61,314, and a prior month of 17 for $68,224. So we're down 5, and we're down $6,910. Our chargeable services delinquency, which includes payments through June 25th of 2018, our current month count, 33, at $71,503, and our prior month count at 38 for $75,217, so we're down $3,714. Our monthly resale report, the number of resales this year to date, 182. Last year, 254. We're down 72, or 28.3%, which is our year-to-date change. Our sales volume this year to date, 51,811,240. Last year, 63,872,009, which is down $12,060,769. So we're down 18.9%. Our average resale price this year to date, $283,792, compared to last year of $250,242. Therefore, we're up $33,550, or we're up 13.4% year to date. Our subleases remain unchanged at 8%. That's all I have.
Thank you, Gary. Our next report is from the Architectural Control and Standards Committee, and it will be given by its Vice Chair, Director Tibbetts.
Yes, we considered 9 alteration requests. We approved all 9, 7 by unanimous vote and 2 on a split vote. They are thoroughly discussed by the committee, and they're not just rubber stamp. We go into them in quite a bit of detail. We also reviewed 3 standards that were just voted on by this board and approved. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that many residents are still doing authorizations that have not been approved. And they are costing the resident a lot of money when they're caught. We catch all of them, even if we have to wait until you move, because they're all the units are checked when you move. And if there are unauthorized alterations, you will have to put it back the way it was originally at your cost, and it can be a great deal of money. And you'll say, well, I've moved, I won't be here. Well, you might have moved, but you don't get your money until the alterations are completed. And we do that just to protect our United board, our United community, I'm sorry. I guess that's what I'm, have you anything to end on that, Jane? Okay, thank you.
You might announce the next meeting. The next meeting.
Oh, I do have it down here.
I don't have it in front of me, it's a week from Thursday.
Yes, I have it.
July 19th at 9:30.
Thank you. July 19th.
Okay. Next, we'll have a report from our Communications Committee, Director Blackwell.
Okay, the Breeze deadline is Friday at noon to me, please. We need your articles. We already have one from Janie and a couple of others, but we need every person's article that I will contact. If you have one that you would like to submit for publication, you can send it to me, and if we can fit something in, I'll check with the president and we'll send it in. But I would like the usual reports from the usual people. Thank you. Also, just to communicate to people, elections, please, elections. As he says, we need people, the more to run, the better. August 10th, 5 o'clock is the deadline. Think of all this fun you could be having. Thank you. The Breeze, I just wanted to say, the Breeze article, 250 word maximum. The Breeze is sent to all emails on file in the village, and 1,000 copies are distributed to the clubhouses, the library, and the community center. There's also an employee newsletter, which is the first week of every month, which recognizes the good employees and various employee news activities. Thank you.
Thank you. The next report is from the Executive Hearings Committee. We meet the fourth Thursday of every month, and we have a number of different things that we do. First of all, from damage restoration, people who are asking for payback, or we are asking for payback of things that were done by the mutual that they should have paid for. It's to an alteration, it's something that there, so it's not something that was covered by the mutual. Then we have the disciplinary section, and then sometimes we also have unpaid assessments or fees and fines that have reached a certain amount with our collection agency that we also have hearings on. Just to let you know, things have been doing well. New cases are down to 115, and active cases to 166, which is a drop from both the previous months. We still find that the clutter, balcony clutter, breezeway clutter, and a carport clutter, common area clutter are some of our biggest, usually our biggest disciplinary things. So we really encourage and ask all of our residents to be mindful that you do live in a community and keep it nice for all of your neighbors. The other thing that we still have a problem with is illegal occupancy. And you do not have anybody that lives with you. We do not rent out rooms. You must have either a approved co-occupancy or you are a guest, which is only allowed for 60 days in any calendar year. So as we find the illegal occupants, the member is brought up to the disciplinary committee. My next report is on the Governing Documents Committee. We met on Wednesday, June 27th, and, excuse me, we, at this meeting, discussed and reviewed how harassment, nuisance, and clutter are defined in our village regulations and rules and under the law. Because, as I've said, those are the biggest issues that we have that come before the disciplinary committee. And lots of times we have members who say, well, I don't understand, you're not specific enough. You say it's a nuisance, it's not a nuisance for me. This clutter is in my area and should not be considered. So we had reports from both Ms. Rangel and from our attorney. And we looked over all of the different things. We talked about the 3-year inspection and asked that perhaps health and safety issues could be reported as part of those 3-year inspections. We defined clutter, took out a couple of words that we didn't think belonged there. Unaesthetically pleasing was pretty vague, so we took that out. To update the clutter policy and the harassment policy and the nuisance policy. And we will be bringing those forward to you probably at the next meeting. We also looked at how we could get the word out best to you, our residents. And we considered an article for the Breeze on the topic, maybe with some pictures showing what we're talking about, particularly with clutter, and to show that help is available, particularly from our social services department when there are neighbor-to-neighbor disputes. We do have mediation through our social services department. So providing members examples of what are deemed as a nuisance, I think is helpful information, and we're looking again at that perhaps for an article in the Breeze. Our next meeting is July 29th at 1:30 in it's not open. So we will be, Mary's looking there, we will have morning, but we're not disciplinary. We're having, before we have an election, Property Services goes through and reports to us any residents who are behind in their assessments and therefore are not eligible to vote. They are notified of that and they are brought forward for a hearing, at which case they could pay it, and before we take them off the list that they're not going to get a ballot, they are entitled to a hearing. So that's what we're doing in the morning, Mary. So it will be an all-day thing again. All right, the Landscape Committee, Director Blackwell.
Yes, we had a meeting June 14th. We scheduled a special meeting, which is Thursday morning at 9 o'clock on pesticides. That will be current pesticide use in our landscape and alternative products and application methods will be under discussion and consideration. I think you will find that our processes have changed in the last year from our standard processes, and we will be considering further changes and adjustments in our uses of products and application methods. I have to let you know that the Nile virus has been found in Orange County. Therefore, you will drain your plant saucers and be sure there is no standing water around. I mean, it takes less than a day, I guess, or certainly less than 2, for those little mosquitoes to multiply. All they need is a little standing water, bingo, they go. That's it. Please, with Nile virus in OC, we don't want it here. Our people will not recover. So watch your pots. Just water just enough to get them wet. As far as what I call solar trees, which are not really solar trees, we did okay the chopping off or the removal of certain trees which were hindering our full solar production for United. We also allowed the removal of selected pine trees after committee approval related to solar panels of members. The removal or trimming of those trees, if approved, will be paid for by the member requesting. But that can be done if you have a personal solar panel, and some of our people do. All right, so that's a new change. So we will see you all tomorrow, I suppose, or Thursday, at 9 o'clock in this very room. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the report of the Maintenance and Construction Committee. Director Tibbetts.
Thank you, Madam President. I learned something new at this last meeting. Although we are part of the El Toro Water District, I didn't realize that the South Coast Water District has an easement that runs in our village, and they have to replace some valves in their vaults, and they have one vault located over by the Aliso Creek area in building 911, these valves in this unit were placed there 57 years ago, and now they're going to have to replace the valves. So they asked to come in. We certainly gave them the authorization to do so. We also had a report, this is kind of minor to some people, but we are putting in new wall switches on a regular basis, and they're a little different than the regular wall switches that you just plug in. And we always had the cover in an almond color. And we've had a lot of requests from a lot of you women that you want a choice of colors. And so we approved that, and we are going to get different colors for you at no additional cost to the community. But it would make a lot of you ladies happy. The Shepherd's Crook program, it's still being organized. It should go out to bid, hopefully, after this meeting this afternoon. We'll be looking at proposals, and then we will start actually putting them in according to where staff has recommended. And that, of course, involves security. Where do we have most of the people entering illegally? Those areas have been identified, and that's where the first Shepherd's Crooks will be installed. And that's the end of the report. However, at this time, I would like to call on Mr. Carl Randazzo to give a report on the Energy Committee.
Thank you. As everyone knows, the Energy Committee is actually a combination of the GRF, Third, and United Mutual. And it used to be a committee, but as of July 6th, we have sat down and determined that this committee is going to actually be a task force. We've come up with a new charter for the task force. It will have 2 directors from each of the specific entities, GRF, United, and Third. And let me just take a minute to read over the charter and the mission of this task force now. It says, in July 2018, the Board of Directors of Third Laguna Hills Mutual, United Laguna Mutual, and Golden Rain Foundation hereby assigns the duties and responsibilities of this task force as follows. The Village Energy Task Force will consist of 2 directors each from Third Mutual, United Mutual, and Golden Rain Foundation. Member advisors, as approved by the task force, will be voting members. Mission of the Village Energy Task Force is to identify and recommend to all boards investments in energy technologies that will address the safety, economic, environmental, and aesthetic issues of Third and United Mutuals and GRF, the corporations, with the common goal to enhance the well-being of Laguna Woods Village residents. 1, recommend to the respective committees and boards for their approval all actions that will result in energy savings for residents and an improved environment for the community. 2, review energy statements and other reports affecting a corporation's energy usage and recommend actions. 3, work closely with staff and review all devices or systems that either generate, control, or consume energy within the corporations. Identify alternatives that would be beneficial, taking into consideration factors such as efficiency, reliability, sustainability, installation, cost, return on investment, carbon footprint, human factors, and operability. Propose priorities of actions. Seek out energy incentive programs applicable to the corporations. Work with respective communications committees to make residents aware of task force actions as well as actions they can take to reduce their own energy costs and improve the environment. In conjunction with staff, item 6, in conjunction with staff, make progress reports to the respective corporate M&C committees on investigation results, resident actions, and comments, as well as M&C committee-approved projects. 7, to improve familiarity with technology and products, the task force should arrange seminars and invite speakers from vendors, universities, trade groups, or consultants. 8, suggest actions the boards can take with respect to the California Public Utility Commission or the California Legislature regarding proposed tariff changes or energy-related bills affecting the corporations. 9, meet and confer with the City of Laguna Woods on energy-saving initiatives offered to municipalities by the state of California through investor-owned utilities, such as Southern California Edison. And lastly, 10, the chair and vice chair of the task force will be elected by members of the task force. The intent of this energy committee, as is indicated by those 10 initiatives, is to basically put our heads together and come up with a good plan for the whole community, because energy is not one thing that affects United or GRF or Third. It affects everybody. As part of this initiative, we also have put together, and we're going to be approving a contract for a consultant to consult with on energy items, okay, and that particular person will be, we have been asked to provide 3 specific priority items, which I will go over with the board at the closed meeting, for him or her to take care of in due course. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Carl. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Have you decided who's on the task?
Yes, Andre?
Thank you very much, Carl. You're doing a great job with this charter and mission. One thing usually in the business environment is after major projects, we have post-implementation evaluation, which will evaluate whether the goals are met or not, and whether the ROI has met or not, what kind of consideration and recommendations for future projects or consideration we have future improvements. I see that you have done a lot of things before the project and during the project, but are you going to, is energy also going to get involved with the post-implementation evaluation and making sure all the projects met its original goals and all the ROIs are achieved? That's my question.
As a part of the Energy Task Force, okay, we will initiate these things. We will then recommend them to the MNC committees from the various different entities, okay, and then each of the boards will then approve them, okay. The Energy Task Force will probably then follow up and ensure that some of those items that we initiated, okay, actually are working, okay, because that'll be part of the Energy Task Force, because we're trying to make sure that everything is going to be efficient and actually works the way we intended it to work. So it will probably, it's not indicated in the initiatives, but it indicates that we are going to have to perform that for the efficiency and for the well-being of the community. So that would be part of that.
I just add to that the Energy Task Force is looking at things. They are not doing specific projects. If there's something that the energy consultant feels is right for United, we would bring it back to this board. It would have a separate project, and all of the things that you're talking about would be included in that. It is not the province of the task force. Next speaker, Maggie Blackwell.
Thank you. Going to the second paragraph. The Village Energy Task Force will consist of 2 directors each from Third Mutual, United Mutual, and Golden Ring Foundation. Member advisors, as approved by the task force, will be voting members. I suggest adding comma, but not officers of the task force. On our other committees, the advisors cannot vote, and certainly they cannot be the officers of the committee. I assume that the officers of this committee would be directors?
It indicates there that there will be 2 directors from each of the individual entities. So there's 6 directors that are going to be sitting on this task force, and then there will be members. And during that meeting, among all of the entities that were there from GRF and United and from Third, it was decided that the advisors would also be voting people, because we are discussing items that are sort of pie in the sky, if you will, at the beginning, because they are not going to get implemented until the M&C committee gets the approval, gives its approval, and then the board gives its approval. So at this particular point in time, we're an entity right now to come up with the specific requirements and the things that we feel are necessary to become more efficient for the well-being of the community, for safety, for all of those things that are needed for the community. So we're just an advisory wing, and they felt that those particular advisors would also be voting members in that case.
My question is, will the president of the task force be an advisor?
Possibly.
That was also discussed, and they said that the chair of this particular task force could possibly also be an advisor because it will be voted by all the entities on this task force, yes. Because again, we are an advisory body, we are not a governing body.
Okay, thank you.
Reza?
Question from Carl. Who from United is going to be in this task force? Has it been decided?
At this particular point in time, there are two people on the Energy Committee, which is now being transformed into an Energy Task Force, and those two people are Juanita and myself, okay? Whether that changes, that could be discussed at board meetings or what have you, okay? But at this particular point in time, it's just Juanita and myself.
Okay.
Now, there will be added advisors, and that person, if he or she has some expertise or what have you and wants to become an advisor, they can petition the task force.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Janie?
My question is, as advisors that normally cannot vote, how does your advisors are handled under our insurance policy as a voting member then?
I'd like to answer that. United is the only one that does not allow their member advisors to vote. Their GRF do. And so as part of this task force, we agreed that the members' advisors could vote. Okay, Andre?
If I understand it correctly, the task force will, the charter and mission will recommend and review statements and seek out the incentives in all these activities. But the president just mentioned that the project will, the board will review and the project will do the evaluation, post-implementation evaluation. But history is that, like, for example, the solar panel project, energy project, so far we haven't heard anything about the post-implementation review. Is there any reason that we shouldn't let task force to take the initiative and make sure that happens?
They don't take initiative, they bring it back to the board, to M&C committees, and the M&C committees take initiatives and bring it to their boards. All they are is advisory. And Andre, I think we have made the point, but I will make it again. We are waiting for JCI and Phoenix to give us our year-end review. It ended June 30th. This is only the 10th of July. We expect at Maintenance Construction's August meeting that we probably at that time will have the information from them on our solar panel project. Okay, report of the Resident Advisory Committee, Mr. Tibbetts.
Yes, we met last month and we had no concerns by any members, so I'm assuming things are going pretty well. That, if any of you residents have a concern and you aren't getting the answer that you want to hear, you're invited to attend the Resident Advisory Committee. You'll probably get the same answer, but we will listen to you one-on-one, and we meet, in fact, our next meeting is in 2 days, Thursday.
Thursday.
And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to help those who work, give you time to come down and talk to us, so you're all invited. It's a good committee, and it has a lot of knowledgeable people attending, and you're more than welcome to attend. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the GRF committee highlights. And first, the Finance Committee, Director Morrison.
Yeah, I gave the numbers for the finances, but I now want to start out with the agenda that we had at our Finance Committee meeting, and then at the end of that, I'll do the GRF highlights.
Okay.
So first of all, we discussed electronic payment methods for residents, and it was approved and is going to be sent to the United Board for approval. Funding, we discussed funding for waistline remediation, and we would like to cut the time for replacement from 12 years to 6 years, which is going to require an additional assessment.
GCI report?
Moisture intrusion, last year, United spent $1.5 million in cleanup for water intrusion. We cannot sustain this kind of expenditure. In addition, everyone I've talked to in United is in favor of taking care of this so as not to have their units flood. Now, $1.5 million equates to $20 per month per unit. So we need to take care of that because we're not gaining any ground at this point. We're spending $1.5 million and we're spending $1.5 million on remediation, and we're also spending $1.5 million cleaning up water. We discussed the handyman program, and there will be a separate accounting for revenue and expenses for this program. We want to make sure that the program is self-sustaining. We discussed electrical panel replacements on the outside of our buildings, which has also not been taken care of for all these years and is going to amount to an expenditure of a lot of money. However, at this point, I'm putting moisture intrusion before that because those are not really causing us big problems. We also discussed the flood buzz and the purchase and installation of flood buzzes for water heaters, sinks, and toilets. And these are sensors that are placed under the sinks, behind the toilets, and under the water heaters. If a leak is detected, an alarm will sound to alert the shareholder of a possible water intrusion so that we can take care of it before there's major damage. These will cost us about $80,000 to $90,000 to buy these units and put them in. So this is just another piece of the puzzle that we need to decide what we want, how far we want to go with the expenditures this year. We discussed a cost of living increase of adding 3% this year for CPI to cover inflation, and the new tariffs, which have been set by Washington on items that are coming into the country, all of the steel, all of the aluminum, parts, washers, dryers, all sorts of items of that sort. So we have to be ready to handle that increase. And that's pretty much the United. Now, GRF Finance, we discussed, the fee schedule was discussed for 2019 and no action taken. We discussed supplemental funding for gate renovations at gatehouses 4, 10, 11, and 12. A motion was made and carried unanimously to recommend the board approve additional funding for gatehouse renovations. Supplemental funding for a community energy consultant, and the committee discussed various topics regarding the retention of a community energy consultant. A motion was made, carried unanimously to recommend the board approve a supplemental appropriation not to exceed $50,000 to be funded from the contingency fund. Now, the next meeting for United is July the 31st, 2 o'clock in the Sycamore Room. And the next meeting for GRF Finance will be August 22nd, 1:30 in the boardroom.
Thank you. And of course, our budget meeting is this Thursday, 1:30.
Correct.
Community Access Committee, Director Durrell?
We did not hold a meeting this last month, and our next meeting will be July the 19th at 1 PM here in the boardroom. That's my report.
Maintenance and Construction Committee, Director Tibbetts?
GRF has, at the present time, about 33 major projects in various stages of completion. We've completed 12 projects as of last month, and the two of the largest projects that are being discussed right now is to complete the pickleball restoration and working on the Performing Arts Center. That's all.
I'd like to give a little report on the Performing Arts Center Task Force. There are so many rumors going around about $10 million, $12 million, up to $15 million to be spent on the Performing Arts Center. And I want to tell you that's not the truth. What was recommended in the task force was $2 million in this year's budget to take care of the health and safety. The air conditioning needs to be replaced. It is old, old, old. It doesn't work. When it is on, it air conditions the whole building, not just any part of it. We have no zoning on that. We're not in compliance with OSHA requirements. There are things on the rigging and the lighting in our theater. At any time, they could come in and say, no more performances until you get this done. So there are a number of health and safety, and that's all that was approved for the Performing Arts Center. This will be readdressed in 2020, 2021, and we'll see if we want where we go from there. But for now, no $12 million, no $15 million, $2 million just to handle the needed health and safety. Okay, Media and Communications Committee, Maggie?
Yes, the Media and...
No, we don't report on, no questions on reports.
Yes, the Media and Communications Committee met on June 18th. Just to report on broadband, we have 6,028 digital subscribers for broadband. We have 9,663 who are authorized for high-speed data. That's quite a few. They are consistently rising and rising and rising as more people are drifting away from their beloved analogs and coming to the new world. As far as the e-blasts go, we have work in the neighborhood. That means maintenance and landscape activities are blasted out to all email addresses on Monday. Happenings and events are sent out on Wednesday. And What's Up in the Village is sent out on Friday. Those are updates on new resolutions and procedures. It is news and information of interest to residents. So that is more of a governmental and news day than the others. We have the Breezes, an e-publication. As I say, it goes out to all residents on file, whose emails addresses we have. We have changed from the color throughout the issue on the 1,000 printed copies we make to color on the front page only, and that will save us a fair amount. We have the employee newsletter, as I told you. All kinds of announcements come out. And we do make announcements in the Breeze, and certainly you will find something, I believe, very soon. I mean, like the next issue possibly, on asbestos. Certainly there will be something on the pesticide use in the village and so on. If you are on another committee and you want something else, yes. We are trying to handle any rumors that come up in the breeze also, but there haven't been too many this year. Thank you.
All right, the next meeting is July 16th, 1:30 in the boardroom. Report of the Mobility and Vehicle Committee, Director Akrakar.
Madam President, there was no meeting last month, and the next meeting will be August 1 at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom.
Thank you. Security and Access Committee, Director Tibbetts.
Yes, Chief Moy gave an excellent report, as he always does. He's always so precise, and he goes into detail as needed. There were 13 mailboxes broken into, all in Third, and staff is looking into that. It's being investigated by the Sheriff's Department, by our staff, and also by the United States Postal Service. And we think we know who did it. It's a daughter of one of the residents, no names, of course, but we'll follow through on that one. Another item that he mentioned was the illegal occupancy of many of our manors. We're up to 113 that we know about. We get complaints about it from residents, but they won't tell us where they are. They don't. They're hesitant in calling in and reporting them. But if you're not happy with it, if they're causing problems, you have to call and tell us where. And then the last item that Chief Moore talked about, it's kind of getting involved with M&C. We're having so many unauthorized alteration that's costing us money. We've hired, or he has hired a person. They're going to go around and check every single alteration that's being performed. And if they're being done illegally, you automatically get a stop order, and there will be a huge fine. You may have to take out what you've done completely and start all over again, but it's going to be quite expensive. You've been warned, and it's going to happen. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. The traffic hearings, Director Akrakar.
Thank you, President. In all total, we met twice. We had 26 cases, and 4 members were found not guilty or excused fines for various reasons. Also, I would like to compliment Chief Moy for tightening up on the contractors' parking violations. And some of the owners members that got ticketed were kind of arrogant, saying that, hey, we didn't know about it. That's not an excuse. Please don't be arrogant. We are doing this for the betterment of the community, and Chief and his group is really bringing compliances to many issues. That's all I have for that.
Thank you. All right. Disaster Preparedness Task Force, Director Morrison.
The Disaster Task Force did not meet this month. It will be meeting July the 31st, 2018, 9:30 a.m. in the Cypress Room.
And Director Akrakar, would you like to speak to the next training for the disaster preparedness?
Yes. Our disaster preparedness activity, there's a big chance now for volunteering. We have tonight at 6 o'clock in Clubhouse 5, a special GNBC meeting, which is group captains. Please attend that and volunteer your time. We have 18,000 residents, and at least 10% is a fair number. You will get to know your neighbors as well and serve the community and earn some brownie points with the guy in the sky. Thank you. 6 o'clock in Clubhouse 5. Thank you.
I
Yes.
want to add to that. There's also now a map of where the captains reside, and it's on Laguna Woods Village on the website, and you can pull that up and see who's around you and use that as a volunteer method.
Because when you look at the map, you see whole spaces where there's nobody, and we really would like to fill those in. All right, agenda item 16 is the future agenda items. And while we don't list them on here, the 5 unfinished will be on, the 5 new business items will be under unfinished business next time. Only 4, sorry, one of them was done today. We talked about calling a special meeting of the corporate members for the trust agreement, updates, et cetera. And as I mentioned before, we are putting those off. They will not be at our next meeting. Items for future agendas are future. They don't mean they're going to actually be at the next meeting, with the exception of the new business items, which go to unfinished business. And I mentioned the task force that we are putting together for that. Looked at director's comments. Carl?
I think this is a very good meeting. Thank you, everybody, and that's all I have to say.
Reza?
Yeah, regarding moisture intrusion, I have a comment. Some of the units over here, they don't have a shut-off valve for water. And when people go, for a vacation, weekend, etc., if something leaks, they will only know when they come back. So it's the committees who are responsible for this should look at this to see if there is a remedy for it. That's one. No, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We will certainly look at that. Mr. Marson?
Yeah, I would just like to address the gate entry system, and this was somewhat my fault for not knowing this, but if you, and this is why I'm putting it out there, if you're having an overnight guest, and even if they have a card to get in through the gate, you still have to call in their name that they're staying overnight. The gate will not let that person in. And also, what I didn't realize, I called security, and security doesn't deal with that. You need to call the gate access number. So I just want to put that out to enlighten everyone who might have an overnight guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yes, I am astounded that United and Third are each paying for 2 full-time employees and using one of the very large trucks that we have to pick up the move-out detritus left in the village, around the carports and at the dumpsters. It is unspeakably bad that this is happening. It's been rising and rising and rising, and now is so bad that we have 2 people fully assigned every working day to do this. Something urgent needs to be done. Don't shy away from yelling at your neighbor or calling it into security. It's the best thing to do. If you see someone leaving something out there, I know they love to do it at night, give security a call if you see it. There is no way that we can monitor this unless we put video cameras everywhere. And most people don't want video cameras everywhere. So watch this. This is just horrible. I suggest with your final papers, wherever your stock share is, put in that very, very folder, please we should make up a poster or something to send out to everybody, a notice that says, please do not place any cast-off items at the cul-de-sacs. Have it removed from the area. Call someone, call Waste Management. They will remove it for free. So that notice should be with your stock certificate. Thank you.
And that's so your heirs will know what to
Yes.
do, because sometimes they're the ones that perpetrate this. In fact, in the last week, I have seen people who have put things out on the curb, not even at the dumpsters, cleaning out mom's units, dad's units, whatever, and they put stuff out on the curb. I guess maybe single-family houses or neighborhoods or whatever, that can be done, but not in this community. Janie?
I wanted to say thank you again to our staff that we have in the alterations department with Kurt and his group. They're fantastic. The other thing is that it's my concern also as being chair of the committee for unauthorized alterations. Please, please, please get your permits.
Don?
I have nothing.
Okay. Andre?
I fully agree with Director Blackwell that all these trashes shouldn't, the big trash should not be put out in the dumpster. And I think there's probably a communication opportunity that we can express to all the residents and help them understand and maybe put on posters like she recommended or on the dumpsters. And if there's anything found out, probably flyers hand out to the distributed to the neighbors in that to the residents in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Cash?
I have a few things. One, I would like to recommend our secretary to save some of her voice by following President's resolution to read only part of the resolutions. Also, I would like to say that rules are there to obey, but at times we have to look other way and be a little more compassionate and be a little care for our neighbor. And there are instances that if we look the other way, it doesn't really affect anything other than leave some soul in peace. So please consider this as a whole big one family that we live together, and let's have better time for everybody. Thank you.
Manuel?
The only comment I have to make is that I feel like today we covered a lot of important topics. All the directors seem to have good constructive comments, and it all proceeded very efficiently, and I hope we can continue this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I echo that. And looking at the clock, I am glad to recess this meeting at 12:23. Not quite 3 hours. We've done a very good job today, and I appreciate all of you all's help in doing that. So we are in recess.